We learned this week that unlike certain US presidents-elect we may come to presently, some people will take the hint after beclowning themselves on the world stage just the once. We learned of the retirement of Australian breaker Rachael Gunn, who, under the nom de dance Ray Gunn, rather stole the show at the Paris Olympics, with a routine sadly difficult for an audio-only medium to do proper justice, though we can provide the soundtrack if you will imagine a walrus suffering food poisoning, which was kind of what it looked like at the time. We learned, however, at least those of us who tuned into the weekend's NFL fixture between the Minnesota Vikings and the Jacksonville Jaguars learned, and if we're honest, it wasn't a classic, that while Ray Gunn may be gone, she is not forgotten. At least not by Viking safety Cam Bynum, who celebrated a game-winning end-zone interception with a familiar-looking series of ungainly exertions.
And Bynum with his patented celebrations.
Australian breakdancing style to close it out.
Except, we then learned that reports of Ray Gunn's retirement may have been greatly exaggerated.
Oh, no.
Well, quite.
It's not a decision that I did come to. This turned into a story. So I was talking on Today FM about how I'm not going to do certain competitions anymore, which didn't seem like such a big deal because breaking's not going to be in the Olympics anyway. But I'm still going to be part of community jams, or I'd like to go to community jams and still dance and still break.
Yes, it seems that where breaking is concerned, she intends to preserve her connection. Come on, jams, preserve, that was gold. Or at least closer to it than Ray Gunn was ever going to get. There we go. All of which is by way of avoiding dealing with the fact that we also learned quite a lot about the future governance of the free world. We learned that shortly to be reinstalled President Donald Trump does have some capacity for forgiveness, as we learned that he intends to anoint as his Secretary of State this guy.
The stakes are giving control of the party of Lincoln and Reagan, of the conservative movement, and ultimately of the United States over to a con artist. That will not happen.
Specifically, Florida Senator and flexible thinker Marco Rubio, who was a commendably staunch never-Trumper right up until the moment he perceived it expedient to change his tune. Come on, keep them coming.
This is what we're going to have.
Here's the guy that inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan.
Never gets old, and who can forget?
For years to come, there are many people on the right, in the media, and voters at large that are going to be having to explain and justify how they fell into this trap of supporting Donald Trump.
Or perhaps we learn Trump just wants Rubio out of the country, and for that much at least. Who can blame him? We also learned that Trump perhaps wishes to be reckoned merely the second most annoying individual in his administration, as we learned that he had outsourced cost reduction to his head cheerleader Elon Musk. And we are forced to concede that Musk does have considerable credentials where reducing costs is concerned. He has, for example, reduced the cost of the social media septic tank X from the $44 billion he paid for it 2 years ago to the $9 billion it is presently valued at now. Sorry, I'm hearing $8 billion. We learned that Musk and fellow billionaire nitwit Vivek Ramaswamy are to be placed in charge of a new Department of Government Efficiency, at least until such time as they fall publicly and melodramatically out with Trump and or each other, so for about 3 days. So we learned that Trump's first masterstroke for reducing the federal government is to create a new Department of the federal government, a bit like when he promised to eliminate the national debt last time out and ended up adding $8 trillion to it. We further learned, by indicator of where it is we may well be at, that the name of the Department of Government Efficiency appears to have been chosen to abbreviate to Doge, which, for the benefit of listeners who go outside occasionally, socialise amiably with their fellow humans, that kind of thing, is a winking reference to a semi-joke cryptocurrency which credulous rubes bought eagerly into before it was revealed to be worth nothing at all. And does that sound like a metaphor for any particular modern American political movement? Well, does it? But we learned that as the president-elect worked his way up through the gears to actually appointing a horse a senior advisor, this is a learned reference to the famously feckless Roman Emperor Nero, look it up afterwards, we had not heard the half of it. We learned that the Secretary of Defense was to be this guy, specifically Fox News host and soap spokesmodel Peter Hegseth.
You see, one-man army loves the country and makes damn good soap. I've used them all, and I love these new brands. Like Gunsmoke, smells like American firepower.
Righto. We learned that Trump's nominee for Attorney General is Florida, inevitably Congressman Matt Gaetz, who does at least have a passing familiarity with judicial process.
CBS News is reporting the Justice Department will not be charging Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz as part of a sex trafficking investigation.
Well, that's something. And we learned that the proposed Director of National Intelligence is former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. And while all the jokes are right there about how making Tulsi Gabbard Director of National Intelligence is like making Rudolph Giuliani Director of National Coherence, this is, regrettably, not the least of it. So we learned, or were reminded via a brisk flip through the public record, that pending confirmation by the US Senate, the Western world's most powerful intelligence official will be an enthusiastic and unapologetic shill for the president of Russia. Verily, the Republican Party has been on a journey from this,
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall,
to this.
Presidents Putin, Zelensky, and Biden, it's time to put geopolitics aside and embrace the spirit of aloha.
It would honestly be more reassuring to discover Moscow was paying her. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Muller.